Stephanie, wave at everybody so they can see your smiling face. Stephanie's going worth a comment to us as well. If you're here tonight to talk about something other than service, then I would hope you would put that on this card and go ahead and hand it to Jenny or to Stephanie or Kat. And we can't talk about it with you tonight because it's not on the agenda if it's not housing. But we want to hear from you, and we can follow up with a phone call or a meeting and hear your ideas about whatever it is you're concerned about that's not housing related. If it's housing, we can talk about it, and we want to hear from you about it tonight. Council, anything else we need to add to that? Just getting started? Okay, and you may have noticed we have a new member up here with us. Our new member is sworn in, and we put him right to work. He said he was going to bring his track shoes, so we said, great, we're going to set a town hall for just a couple of hours after you're sworn in. So that's what we're here for. We're slotted tonight for this meeting for 6 to 8, and we'll try to keep to that time frame because we know you guys have kids at home with homework and things that need to get done, but we want to give it enough time that we feel like the dialogue can be productive. Jared, want to leave anything else?
No, ma'am.
Okay, great. Well, at this time then, I'm going to hand the meeting over to Stephanie Coggins, who's going to operate as our moderator. Stephanie?
Thank you, Mayor. We will get started this evening with those that have signed up. As the Mayor mentioned, they're very excited to hear your comments and feedback tonight. So we will allow 3 minutes per speaker to give everybody a chance that wants to share your views with the council. First up will be Theresa Kennedy. So Ms. Kennedy, if you'd like to make your way up, and while she's doing that, Edie Masso will be next on deck. Theresa Kennedy, you may begin.
Good evening, everyone. I want to talk about housing, and I'm so glad that you're talking about it as well. I was doing some research on what are the programs that have been successful, and there's a program in Wisconsin, Milwaukee, and Bulla. I may have said that wrong. Be sure that we are considering that. It's a one-stop shop, so it's a place where a home buyer can get home buyer can get home buyer information from financial counseling to how do I rehab this house, brokerage information, just that one-stop shop. I really like that concept, so we're not having people have to go all over the city to get services. They can go to one place, one building, and gather that information. So as we're looking ahead, we're housing for our families without homes, our individuals without homes. I want us to look at what has been successful already and learn how to implement that as well. So as we look at I worked for AISD for 25 years, and we have a lot of homeless children and their families, and especially those kids who are, are 17 and younger, 15, 17, who don't have a place to go. And I hope we'll hear from Kimber Thompson tonight to be able to talk about what those numbers look like and how important it is that they have a place to live. Just like we're going back to our homes and apartments and townhomes tonight, so do these children and these families want to go there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kennedy. Next will be Edie DiTomaso. And on deck after Edie will be Mr. Tyler Tren.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Good to see everybody again. I know that we have been doing some working on homeless housing and so forth, but just kind of driving around some of the extended downtown area, like on 3rd Avenue and so forth. There are a lot of vacant lots over there, and I would like to see us be more involved in building tiny homes for the homeless people. I'd like to see that when we build them, that we take into consideration that many of them are disabled, that some of them have wheelchairs, some of them have other things that are going on. And, maybe just using that housing first model where we put people in homes first and then worry about the mental illness and all the other nonsense that goes on with them. Look more into doing that. I don't know whether the city could acquire the land or whether we need to look at another model with that. I know that there is a group that's working on some of that, but I really feel strongly about doing those tiny homes for them because many of them can't go into the shelters because they're like, new people, oh no, I can't be next to people. And, it's through no fault of their own. They have a mental disability. And so if you put them in tiny homes, at least when, they can go in and get showered, go to the bathroom, have a place to sleep, and maybe a small kitchen or a kitchenette, so that they could sort of be independent and we could start working on some of those things. So I'm I haven't been involved much with the homeless community, been involved in other stuff in the city right now, but would really like to see us looking into some tiny homes for the homeless. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. DiSimoso.
Thank
Next,
you.
Mr. Tyler Tren, and after Mr. Tren will be Mr. Scott Lindsay.
I was hoping that we can work together and everybody can win on my idea of with the city coming together, a banker, an investor that can come together, and myself, where I have a property that I cannot rehab, I can give it to them temporary where they can, with other help, that they can, somebody can finance it and somebody can do the work and we can have other families moving in, and basically my thought is where I can give you a property that I own that I cannot rehab, somebody can work on it, finance it, and then somebody manage it or sell for a year, I don't know, and then in the end I'll get the property back. That's my thought.
Thank you, Mr. Tren. Next is Mr. Scott Lindsay.
Hello there. We want to introduce ourselves and get involved in the conversation. We've got a couple thousand acres on the loop on the east side of town. Some of it, we've got city amenities through our property line. We're open to multifamily, commercial in front, multifamily, single family on the back. We're open to ideas. We're bringing 31 new lots. We went through our PAC meeting, we're not required to plat. 31 10-acre lots inside the loop that are available with getting signs up. And so we'll be right, that's different. 10 acres versus single family, 1 acre lots versus, we've remodeled, we've been involved in low income housing in downtown Detroit, downtown Memphis and Atlanta. We've remodeled nearly 300,000 square feet of apartments. 10% of our tenant base was Section 8. The remaining 9% was market value. So we've got experience running that type of property as well. We're just open to ideas, but mostly we just know there's kind of a lopsided growth in this town, and we just want to make that east side available to all these businesses that are locating out there at the airport, etc. And anyway, I want to work with y'all for the next several years as our goal is to develop it all out of the path.
What's the name of your company, Mr. Lindsay?
Well, we're not. It's a family and farm and ranching outfit, and the Kaiser family, and based out of about an hour south of Clovis, New Mexico, and we farm and ranch in Oklahoma, Texas, and New Mexico. And the present family is the 29th largest landowner in the United States, and we've chosen Amarillo as our development spot for now. Okay?
Interesting.
So need anything from us, we're happy to help.
And Mr. Tinsley, which side of the loop did you say?
Both sides. We've got the
Okay,
section of
both
land
sides.
south of the Speedway, and then we've got the half section across the street from it. So all in all, I think I've got 2.5 miles of loop frontage, and then inside the loop, 1.5 miles. We've got another 800 acres. So if development in that part of town over time is something that we can get involved in the plan, the comprehensive plan, you know, it has been available for over 100 years, and so it's time that farmland becomes available.
So what brought you to Amarillo? Just out of curiosity.
We traveled between here and McAllister, Oklahoma, to our ranch out there, and so it's just driving through all the time, and just saw land available along that loop, and stopped and asked.
The answer is I-40.
It took I-40 in the loop, yeah.
That's awesome.
And the airport's right there. We've got Amarillo College, we've got the airport, we've got the city, and so again, we're just happy to explore all items.
Glad to have you.
Thank you.
But we want to, y'all should know that just that development option is available in that direction. Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lindsay. Next, we'll have Kaya Warnsley. And after Kaya, Kimber Thompson will be on deck. Did I say it right? Excellent. Will Ms. Warnsley begin when you're ready?
Hi, y'all. So, we're talking about housing needs and future development. I just wanted to come and say that I think that it is important that we place an emphasis on the north side as we talk about housing needs and future development. So I hope that that's in conversation, right? But also at the same time that we look at a grocery store. So if we're talking about future development plans, we do not want to put more housing over on the north side without discussing the need for food purchasing, or the fact that the north side is currently a food desert, and where the grocery stores are situated in that community right now. I mean, there aren't any, or where people have to travel to get food, affordable food, healthy food in that community. So before we discuss housing, again, housing needs, and before we begin to build housing structures in that area, please look at building a grocery store.
Thank you, Ms. Warnsley. Next, Kimber Thompson. And after Kimber, Todd Whitehurst will be on deck.
Kimber, I'm so glad you're here.
Oh, thank you. Teresa kind of threw me under the bus there, so
Yeah.
I wasn't going to say anything. But I'm the homeless liaison for Amarillo ISD, and so Teresa spoke to homeless student numbers. So I just wanted to share those numbers with y'all. Our number changes every day because we qualify students for our program on a daily basis. We are currently sitting at about 1,790 homeless students as of this morning. Approximately 100, probably a little more than that, of those students are what we consider unaccompanied couch surfers is how they're sometimes referred to, which would be kids aged about 15 to 19 that are still in school and are literally bouncing from couch to couch to couch to couch or wherever we can find for their head to fall. Teresa spoke about the need for housing for those students, and that is definitely something that has always been a goal of mine, to figure out how we could have a shelter of some sort that was just for those unaccompanied high school kids. But I do want to piggyback on what she said before me about housing on the north side, and I would say the far east side, Eastridge area as well. She's right about needing grocery, like access to food in those areas, because that's a problem we see all the time when we house families in those areas that may not have reliable transportation or only have one car and someone's at work. They can't get to food. They can't get to the food banks or the grocery store, things like that. So that is something, when we're talking housing development and housing for low-income families, that has to be looked at as well. I can't even tell you how many applications I have right now in trying to house families that are homeless currently. So with the number of homeless students increasing on the regular and those unaccompanied youth, it's definitely something that we need to be looking at.
Do you have a heat map for those kiddos, Kimber? I mean,
one more time, I'm sorry.
Are they mostly in one part of our city, or are they just all throughout the city?
No, they're everywhere. I mean, we spend a lot of time on the east side and the north side, I would say, but we're just as much in the Tascosa cluster as we are anywhere else.
So what's the definition for homeless when you're considering the 1,790?
Yes, sir.
Just for some reference?
Yes, it's not your typical definition of homeless that we know. It's the definition provided by McKinney-Vento that was enacted in 1987. So it's families living in a shelter, families living in homes that are not meant to be occupied, such as no running water, gas, or electricity, or homes that have been boarded up and they've just kind of squatted there. It's families that are living in a motel because they can't afford their own housing or can't find anywhere to live. They've lost their housing, so they're in a hotel. And it's also families that are what we call doubled up, which are multiple families in one home due to the lack of ability to afford their own housing. So I have a family right now that has 12 people in a 2-bedroom, 800-square-foot house because each family can't afford it on their own, so they've just all combined together. So we have a lot of that as well.
Any traction on that shelter idea?
No.
Are you seeing any city that's doing that?
There are some programs in larger cities that have some type of a temporary shelter for unaccompanied youth. The unaccompanied youth problem has grown, and so it's everybody's kind of on the ground floor of trying to get started with that. Some areas have like what they call empty nesters through churches or something that have volunteered to let kids stay with them temporarily that are in those situations. And some areas are working to establish some kind of shelter.
And what are your numbers doing, Kimber? Are they trending up, like over the last 5 years?
Yes.
Are they getting more and more?
Yes.
Kimber, do you have, excuse me, do you have any nonprofits that you work hand in hand with?
We do. We receive a limited amount of funding through the Emerald Area Foundation through the Beans and Cornbread events and the campaign for the homeless, the community campaign for the homeless. We work closely with Mission Amarillo. He provides shoes to our students. Work with Colorful Closets. We work with a couple of churches in town. We have one church that does a blanket ministry, and so they provide tons of blankets for us. We have another church that does Christmas for about 75 to 100 of our kids. The Junior League has done quite a bit for us as far as food's concerned because we try to run a non-perishable food pantry out of our office as well. All right, thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Todd Whitehurst, and after Todd, we'll have Betsy Cornett. Mr. Whitehurst.
Thank you, Council. My name's Todd Whitehurst. I'm a builder here in town, remodeler, own a few other businesses, and I specifically want to mention the north side. It's a diamond in the rough, especially University Heights. I'll use that as a great example. University Heights has very good infrastructure. There's good roads. Carver, of course, is there, and magnet school and that type of thing. What's lacking there as a builder, as a builder, you can't buy lots anywhere in town for what you could buy them on the north side. But why do you not build on the north side? You don't build on the north side because you can't get comps. You can't get comps because there's a lot of property there that just needs to be condemned, pushed over. There's a lot of property there that's been let to sit, that's brought down the neighborhood But if you drive through there, there's really a spark of light that's gone there. There's some smaller brick homes. There's some Hispanic families that have moved in, that have redone some properties. And it's literally 2 miles from there to Tascosa Country. That's the spread between, these huge homes and that neighborhood. And it is a food desert. There's no question about it. Diabetes is high in that neighborhood. It's a food desert, but it's very simply dealt with a busing route to go to the Tascosa area over there, Tascosa Road, and those areas. I would really encourage the city to, when they look at permitting there, make sure that you're not approving liquor stores. Make sure you're approving those things, the laundromats and those kind of basic things that are needed there. It's a very strong, vibrant community, and as a builder, I would quickly go over there and build, small 12, 1,500 square foot home. But I have to be able to have the comps to support financing. And most of the financial institutions, probably all the financial institutions in town, have money available for investment in those types of communities. They're required to. So it's not that they don't want to do it, it's just nobody's building it. I mean, why would they? In a very short or very simple investment in just going over there and cleaning off some of that stuff that just has been rotted out would make a huge impact, and to me have a very quick impact. Again, I can buy a $100,000 lot on one side of town, or I can buy a $1,500 lot on the north side, and it just economically all of a sudden starts. That's.
Hey, Todd, are you able to over here on this one, Todd?
Oh, sorry.
Are you able to compete in that market over there?
Well, it's not really I'm a remodeler, so I'm not a new home builder. I'm not, for me, I'm not going to go out and build 300 houses and develop land, right? So there becomes an economic. As a remodeler, I do a lot of remodeling. I have a love for old homes. I have a love for new homes and for community specific. I have a very deep love for that community because a woman raised me. And I've seen that community struggle for a long, long time. And so, yes, economically, it can make sense. You can sit there and do 4 or 5 houses in a row and finance those and just do the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and create a situation where you're not going to get rich. But part of it is, yesterday the National Home Builders Association yesterday put out a report that the median home price in the United States is $397,000. $93,000 of that was government impact. That stifles building, and I grew up in Amarillo. I left for 25 years, built in Dallas for 5 years, came back. And to me, Amarillo is hitting what I call critical mass. And at critical mass, at our population right now, at critical mass, there's going to, at a standard 3% growth, there's going to be a need for about 1,800 new houses per year. Just if nobody moved. Just normal 3% growth. And the biggest problem you're going to have is affordable housing. And so we have infrastructure there. I mean, I can drive through the north side, and like I said, the streets are in good condition. The utilities are there. I mean, it's all been done. It's just stagnant. And I think a very small investment on the city's part, go in there and just do some, would start drawing those. I would be there, but again, I need a few more comps to make it make sense. Sorry, I belong.
That's good. Thank you.
Yeah. It's interesting what you said about CRA money, because I know banks are always struggling on how to get more CRA projects.
Thank you, Mr. Whitehurst. Next is Betsy Cornett, and after Ms. Cornett will be Veronica Rodriguez.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I want to talk a minute about a different side of the housing project. I spend a lot of my time answering disasters or house fires or things like that, and I've just in the last 3 days probably added to the homeless child population that the school has, because there are no resources, there are no real, there's not a VOAD, there's no choice, there's no electrician that can come turn that electric back on so they can return to the home. There's nobody that can help them. There's no way they can get financing to help rebuild their home after a small disaster or a small fire or something like that. So I would like to see some kind of development in that respect so that people that rightfully had their homes, could afford their homes, can stay or rebuild, and because many of them do not have insurance. I spend a lot of time on the north side, and there are no options after the immediate assistance given. They're kind of just hanging out there looking for a solution. So I would like some attention put on that problem, and maybe the development of a VOAD where all the agencies of disaster can work together to provide other resources to assist these families back into their homes or into another safe and sustainable answer to their problem.
That's a great thought. I'm really glad you shared that with us.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Cornett. Next, Veronica Rodriguez, and after Ms. Rodriguez will be Cara Crowley.
Hi.
I work for, I inspect homes, and my biggest problem that I see is the Heights, the Barrio, and the San Jacinto area, due to the fact that they need the help. But like I said, during disasters, we had a lot of ceilings leak, pipes bust, and the majority of them don't have the insurance. So I'd like to see if there's some kind of low-income insurance that the people can get to repair their homes. The foundation is falling in a lot of these areas, and we love to help them out. But at the same time, due to the areas, it's just they stay poor because we don't give them a chance to help them out so they can advance. I grew up in the San Jacinto area. I'm very fortunate that I worked hard to get out of there, but at the same time, my mother's lived there for many years, and she doesn't want to leave. She knows every single neighbor. She's comfortable. However, there's not a lot that they can advance in those areas due to the fact that there's no insurance, there's no kind of assistance in helping, and I'd like to see a little bit more of that going on. I know that y'all are working in those areas, but during disasters is when they're hit the hardest, and the children are the ones who suffer in the midst of all this. So I would like to see some kind of improvement, a little bit more help in that area with buses or just to help the children, the community. There aren't, like a lot of people, we all have the same concerns with the food being scarce in those areas, the shopping. They have to find rides. My mother is disabled, so I pick up a couple of friends and I take them out, but I can't always do that. And so sometimes they're scared to sit outside by the bus stop because the younger crowds who don't really want to progress in life harass them, bother them, or just scare them in general. So I'd like to see a little bit more improvement in that if we can do some help with that.
Yeah, Ms. Rodriguez, who are you with again?
I work for Excel Construction Group.
Okay, is it like X or E?
It's EX.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. We're out to help community. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, Veronica.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. Next is Cara Crowley, and after Ms. Crowley will be Cynthia Meyer, I believe. I hope I got that right.
Cara, just pull that microphone a little. I think we're sitting right under the vents. We can hear, we've heard everybody, but I don't know, maybe it's just me, I'm getting old. I'm having to strain to hear you guys.
Hi, I'm Cara Crowley, and I represent Amarillo College. I just want to talk about the Tacoma Housing Authority and their program with the Tacoma Community College. At Amarillo College, 17% of our students are homeless, and 56% of our students are housing insecure. And so Tacoma worked with their Tacoma Community College to develop a housing voucher program to provide subsidized housing assistance with their HUD funding. And so it came from federal funding that the city already receives, and they just rerouted it to provide vouchers that provide subsidized housing assistance that went anywhere from $400 to $800 off of rent. And what was interesting about this study that came out in 2020 is the return on investment for these funds. For the students that were in the pilot program, 60% of those students either graduated or retained, versus 16% of the students that were in the comparison cohort that were not part of the voucher program were not graduated or retained. And so I would just consider for the council to look at that program and consider participating in it.
Cara, is this something that the college is interested in having a further discussion with us about?
Absolutely.
Okay, are you the contact person for that?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Cara, how does that go along with the Earn While You Learn?
The Earn and Learn program we're launching at the college. It would probably assist with it. Part of the problem we have at the college is that tuition, most students are on Pell Grant. About 60% of our students receive a Pell Grant that functionally just covers the cost of their tuition and fees. It doesn't cover the cost of their basic needs, so their utilities, their housing, their food. And so we're hoping with Earn and Learn, by getting them funds that they can receive on the job training, that we can help cover the cost of these additional things, so the cost of their housing and stuff. But it still costs, housing is exorbitant in Amarillo if you're a college student. So to pay $1,500 for rent when most of our students have 2 part-time jobs making $10, $12 an hour, they can't afford that.
Good question.
So Cara, is the Tacoma Housing Authority, is it kind of, it's not technically a nonprofit, I would take?
No, they're run through their city, the city of Tacoma. So I don't know what our...
It's like our CDBG, I mean, our
I don't know
equivalent
where
department.
I'm looking at it right now trying to figure
Yeah,
out
it's Riddlesburger.
what's going on.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, we need to-
formerly Juliana, but
Jason
CDB.
Riddlesberger would be exactly the person to get on charge of that,
Yeah.
and get on top of it and get with
Yeah.
AC and coordinate,
yeah.
just to explore possibilities.
Yeah, exactly. I'm really glad you're here, brought the idea. Other questions, council, for Cara? Thank you, Cara.
All right, thank you.
I think
Thank you,
some-
Ms. Crowley.
I think
Next
those
is
are
Ms.
some of the
Meyer.
things we need to talk about, though.
Say that again, Eddie, while she's coming up.
I think things like what Cara brought up are the things that we are going to have to begin to talk about, because, I mean, I can go through the list of things that I'm writing down that are really important. I mean, food desert, getting people off the streets, helping. We've got kids that are in school that are couch surfing and that are homeless, and we've got all these other things. And then now that she brings this up, and so how do we meld these needs and our desires to be able to do that, and what is our portion of it as a city, and how do we work with that from there? Because obviously it's the most important thing that we're talking about tonight. I really didn't know what I expected to hear people want to talk about on housing, but it's obvious that we're getting a feel for how do we help, and that's my question. How do we help?
Yeah, and I think we're going to continue to listen, and it's helping us see what the priorities are, and that's going to drive the next steps on this. There's no easy button here.
No, obviously not.
Or many of you would have already hit it because you've been involved in these issues, and you're seeing the people who are actually suffering the pain from them. So this is all about listening tonight and seeing what the action steps are from there. And every action step leads to 5 more action steps. So we've learned that from serving on the council for the last 4 years. So
that's true.
That's just part of it. But yeah.
Well, and another thing, if you could take a look at the
We
city.
pulled that microphone. I'm sorry to interrupt
Take
you,
a look
dear.
at the city HUD. They don't well, my caseworker really hasn't sat down with me. I have never seen her face, and I have no idea what the 40% they're taking off of. They're taking out, she says you're going to pay 40% of, I don't know if it's the house that I'm going to rent or if it's my income. They're taking 40% of something that shows what I'm going to pay in rent. So they have to inspect the house. See, I've lived it where I'm living for 9 years. And all of a sudden I have to move because the landlord will not fix anything. And so I'm moving. And I don't understand the process of the HUD situation. And so I have not met with my caseworker face to face in explaining to me how this works. And she said over the phone that she gives me a packet, and I contact the landlord when I find a house, and they tell me how much rent is, how much deposit. Then I give them the packet. We sign the packet. They do an inspection, and then they tell me how much my rent is. Okay, so I have to be out of my house in 30 days. What if I can't afford what my rent is? Then I've just wasted 3 weeks or 2 weeks of that 30 days. So then what do I do?
I think, Jared, we need to get her in contact with that caseworker.
Yeah, we need to, in fact, if you can go back to the very back, Kevin Starbuck is over there. He's the deputy city manager.
Kevin, raise your hand so she can see.
If you look straight back there, you can see him back there waving at you. If you can go back there and touch base with him, he'll get you set up with, if your caseworker is with the city of Amarillo, then he can get you set up with whoever that is, and they can take care of that for you, or at least get you having that face-to-face conversation.
Okay,
Yeah.
because I'm in the dark.
Yeah,
You know?
I'm glad you came tonight.
Thank you.
Okay.
And what is your name again, ma'am? Ma'am?
Stephanie,
What is your name?
Cynthia Meyer.
Cynthia Meyer.
Thank you.
Thank you,
you,
Ms.
Ms.
Meyer. At this point, we've made it through all of the sign-up cards that were turned in, but if we have anybody out there that would like to speak on the topics on the agenda surrounding housing, if you'll raise your hand, we'd like to hear from you. Would anybody like to speak at this time? Okay, ma'am?
Yes, and I want to encourage you guys too. I see some realtors out there, some builders. We're really hoping to hear feedback from you on how we can, I really appreciated Mr. Whitehurst's comments, but we need help knowing from you guys, from a builder and developer standpoint, how we can make the processes in the city better, and also how we do it sustainably, because we're falling behind on providing that infrastructure. And so as new development comes online, yes, it adds property to our tax rolls, but the tax we make from that property doesn't cover the cost of the infrastructure to bring that property onto the tax roll. So how do we bridge that gap? Right now, taxpayers are bridging the gap. They're picking up the difference. But we really want to hear ideas from our development people who are in the process of developing those lots, talk about how we cover that gap and how it doesn't land on people who are already paying property tax. So I hope that stirs some thinking, and council, y'all may have other topics that you're hoping to hear from. Anybody want to add on to that? Okay. You'll have other opportunities, definitely, but ma'am, did you want to come to the front then? Stephanie, I'm going to hand it back to you then.
Yep, if you'd like to come up. And if you'll share your name with council and then share your comments.
Good evening, I'm Karen Fryer. It's good to see the real faces of the people that vote for. One of the things that concerns me as a senior citizen is right now I'm on HUD and not with the city. And they've told me that max rent they will pay on the house right now is $700 a month, which they don't do anymore. They pay $25 for my rent, cut it down, cut it back. If I was to go try and find another two-bedroom house, the garage, no way I could find one for $700. And I'm sure that there's other senior citizens in Amarillo that are facing that same problem. I didn't know what was there. And I also have a neighbor behind me on the Coming Home program, and I know that is through Amarillo. Great that they get off the street, but generally speaking, his house right in back of me is like a junkyard. And I had talked to the social worker and said, you know, the program's a great idea, but when you put somebody behind a senior citizen that has mental and puts junk in their backyard, that's not a good thing. Another concern I have, I live really close to 6th Street Avenue, whichever it's called now, and there's a house in Western and Fairmont maybe, where they're just opening its front yard and there's a bunch of junk in that front yard, and that doesn't leave a really good impression of Route 66. Any property on there, not, they should have to put up a fence or a wall or something.
Jared, what's the process for a citizen who has, code enforcement, that's the bureaucratic word.
I need to talk to them again.
Yeah, what's the process for someone who has a code enforcement problem with a neighbor? I mean, best case scenario, they would go and talk to that neighbor.
If they can get through his barricade.
Yeah,
no.
That's a hard conversation, and you might not feel safe always to do that. So what would you recommend to a citizen who has a code enforcement issue?
Well, it sounds like we've got, in this situation, maybe multiple issues. If it's just simply and I don't mean simply as in it's a small thing, I just mean if it's purely a code enforcement issue, then calling building safety, and we can get that number for you. We can have a staff member.
I can find it. Yeah, I've actually called them before.
They can work with you. If it is also compounded by, it's also not just a building safety issue or a code issue, but it's also a coming home issue. There's two departments we can talk to that can both coordinate together to work on that issue. Now, that assumes that there's a violation, and I'm not saying there's not. I know that there's a lot of times where it is an annoyance and it's frustrating, and sometimes it's also not a violation that we can address through the code. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just saying until we see it, we're going to need to get building safety for sure, working with you. And Floyd or Andrew, actually, can you get with Ms. Pryor? As soon as you walk away, if you can go touch base with Andrew, he's standing up right now. Okay. He can get you in touch with whoever can help you with this situation, whether it's building safety or building safety and CDBG, which would be Jason Riddlesberger, and they can help you with it.
Excellent. And for future meetings, we need to address animal housing.
Animal health? Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Fryer.
He stepped right back to the very back, so if you can head back to that stairway.
Thank you, ma'am. Do we have anybody else that would like to? Okay, in the blue jacket over here, if you'd like to make your way up and share your name with council and your comments. And we are going to adjust the mic real quick before you start. It's moving it up.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, council members. Congratulations on your re-election and particularly on taking this big step to have a community conversation about housing. So I don't have prepared remarks. My name is Cindy Bulla. I am the immediate past chairman of Texas Realtors and a proud resident of Amarillo, Texas, and a realtor that practices here locally. I also do some property management, so I've been making some notes throughout, and particularly about the homeless situation. I'm aware of it, but sometimes when you hear those numbers, and especially those numbers about our student population, it is crushing. And unfortunately, I don't come to the microphone today with great news about the affordability problems that are causing some of the homelessness that we're seeing out there, but I know that if we partner together as a community, we can work on it. And part of that is to understand, for all of our citizens to understand that housing is a really big picture, and to free up the housing we need in an affordable way, we also have to have housing supply that's sustainable in all of the price points. And realtors understand that tomorrow's transaction is far less important than the next decade of economic health for our communities. So we are really thinking about the long-term big picture when we say we do need our council to continue to be diligent about condemnation of those properties that are abandoned and forgotten, because when those are taken care of, you elevate the interest and the pride and the possibilities for homeownership and rental properties in those often forgotten neighborhoods. Also diligent in law enforcement and the population and the community policing that you have begun the efforts on now. But law enforcement is important in those areas because every person wants a home to either own or rent in what they call a safe neighborhood. So continue your diligence in law enforcement. I love the community reinvestment idea because I believe there are a lot of untapped areas because we forget to remind our corporate people, our investors throughout the city that our homeless population and the need for affordable housing affects every other tier of housing and availability. We have an economic development corporation doing a great job of encouraging businesses to relocate to Amarillo, but how successful will they be if we don't have a supply of housing for their employees? So all tiers of those houses are important. Also, we are seeing nationally, statewide, and here locally, a lot of incentives on the rental end, a lot of help and a lot of work on the rental end, and that is important. But home ownership is a dream, and those of us who've had the privilege of being homeowners know how special that is. So let's not forget to work on those programs that will help these entry-level people who are just getting their feet underneath them to actually become homeowners, or at least make that part of the dream. And the realtor community is ready to partner with education and resources toward helping those people sort of move to that next level that might allow them home ownership. I know insurance that we've talked about today, those prices are going to really go up because of replacement costs and materials costs that we're experiencing right now. I hope that'll level off, but that's not going to do anything to make rental properties any more affordable. Thank you for working on transportation. The Wi-Fi conversation that you've been having, that's all plays into affordable housing. And I'll stop now because I heard the buzzer go. But thank you, Council, very much.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bulla. Do we have anyone else in the audience that would like to share comments? Sir, back in the back. If you'll please share your name when you come to the podium and then your comments.
So many of y'all know me. I'm JT with the Builders Association. I'm the new executive officer. There's a couple things that we, as an organization, want to know. We're not happy with the impact fees. Here's the reason for it. Is California started those like $100 per lot, and now it's anywhere between $15,000 to $20,000 a lot. The problem is when a city does those, they don't plan ahead and they keep adding these costs. And they're like, well, that's going to the developer. The developer is just going to pass it on, it's going down that way. Let's just take an example of a lot now. A $100,000 lot in some of the newer neighborhoods, you can go, let's go Smoky Hollow, out of the city limits, $40,000 a lot. You add a well and a septic, that's $80,000. You're still cheaper to start building outside the city limits than you are in the city limits. We have to start working on being able to get those lots a lot cheaper and develop so that they can have city water, sewer, so we can get the tax revenue off. The other thing is the comprehensive plan. So far, y'all's plan has been decent in the most parts. One of the things that we're working with the city right now is the building code. We're in 2012, we're moving to the 2018 code. the thing is when we make those changes so drastically in so many years in advance, you're going to get builders that don't want to change or form. We would keep up with those changes. It would help us a lot. Also keep in mind for every $1,000 a price increases, 15,000 people are lost from getting into a home, can't afford it. So, that's all.
JT, I think we definitely need to have you at the table as we continue these conversations. So I feel like we just scratched the surface because I have a lot of questions. Just you have knowledge that we need in order to have this conversation. Like I said, we know there's not an easy button, or somebody would have hit it a long time ago. But what we need to do is make a plan on how to move forward that takes into consideration everything in your industry, both how the cost lands on the consumer and how the cost lands on you as the builder and the developer. So we have to have that conversation. But I think what this is tonight is a good contact point, and just say to you, I'm asking you, would you be willing to continue being a part of those conversations?
Most definitely. We have several people that will.
Okay.
We have people from every industry, so we can gather those people up.
Okay, great. Well, start your gathering.
Okay.
Because this is, I think going to be a very important conversation, and we need your expertise at the table in order to do it well.
JT, do you know, the Builders Association have anybody that's actively sitting on the Codes and Standards Committee?
Jeff Bryant is right now.
And he's been there for quite a while, right?
Yes.
Okay. And do we have anybody else, or is it just Jeff?
I think it's just Jeff right now that's on all the time.
Okay.
Anybody else have questions for JT? Looks like he wants to escape, but I don't want him to stay, JT. We might have questions.
I have one more, but off topic. Well, on topic, but previous conversation. So, Builders Association for years has done different projects that benefit the community. With some of the money that we have in that association, you guys spend it to rehab certain houses or help different people. Do we still do that?
We do. We still have a community outreach program, and there's a committee that will review any projects that are brought to us. I'm not going to say all of them will be done, but we do have several things that can help rehab houses.
Because I'm definitely seeing a connection there.
Sure. So, if we were able to walk away from the meeting tonight saying, let's just do one, like we don't have to solve the entire housing problem this next year, but let's just do one. So we find someone that'll fill that role. Will the Builders Association, they would review that, and then you probably have other projects currently going that are pro bono, I'm assuming?
Yeah, we definitely will look at any project. That's not a problem for us.
Okay.
Okay.
And then I also was wondering, Kevin Starbuck, Jared stepped away to the restroom. Can we use, I know there are HUD funds available for repair. It's not so much a question of can they be used for that, it's just a question of we only have so much in HUD funding available every year to the community. But on these small disaster recovery, which I thought was such a great point, the Red Cross steps in to help you in the first 48 hours or whatever their time frame is. But maybe there's some sort of synergy between the Builders Association and programs that run through our HUD funding where, yes, you guys could do it, but you're not necessarily doing it at no cost.
Yeah, through our community development program, we have the emergency repair grant that it often addresses broken water line, air conditioners going out, heaters going out, things along those lines. So it's a great opportunity to address those issues. An individual has to apply; they have to qualify. It is a federal program, so there's a lot of restrictions, a lot of requirements. But we certainly worked to the best of our ability to get all of that money pushed out into the community, make a difference to address those concerns. So if it is a lower income house that qualifies, we can certainly address those issues. We do have grant dollars that are available to address those types of concerns if it's a repair or it's been damaged or things along those lines. And we're always looking for opportunities. It may be a great opportunity to maximize those dollars or even make them more exponential to do partnerships like that. We're always open to those ideas. But we do administer those federal grant programs through community development.
Betsy, is that something you knew about? Okay, they're falling in the gap. They too much, but not enough to make their own repairs. Okay.
And Mayor, along those lines, we have had an active VOAD in the past, especially generated out of the 2011 wildfires. Red Cross and many of our nonprofits were part of that group. It probably just has not been as active in the last couple of years. And that's something that we could certainly work with those volunteer agencies to try to get it to step back up to maybe fill some of those gaps that Betsy mentioned.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Kevin. Thank you, JT.
Thank you, JT. Do we have anyone else in the audience that would like to share comments tonight? Okay, ma'am, if you'd like to come forward. If you'll please share your name with council and share your comments.
My name is Wanda Nelson, and I'm just here to listen, but I do have a question. With the drainage fee, all of Amarillians, they have a drainage fee, but on the north side, there's an infrastructure problem where when a house gets on fire, it burns down because there's no water to put it out. So I just wanted to kind of suggest that to be, because as he was talking about building more, which we need that over there, I think that's an important issue.
Thank you, Ms. Nelson.
Do we have anybody else that would like to share comments this evening? If so, please raise your hand at this time. Mayor, I would turn it back over to you at this time.
Okay. Thank you, Stephanie, very much. Yeah. Ms. Nelson, I just want to follow up with you and let you know that we've asked the city manager just to follow up on that, because certainly that would not be acceptable if we had any area in the city where the infrastructure or the water pressure or whatever was not sufficient enough for us to fight a fire. So Floyd and...
I'm going to ask Floyd to get... Floyd, can you go to Ms. Nelson and let's just have a good understanding of where exactly we might not have fire hydrants or water infrastructure available to be able to service a developed part of the community.
Thank you, Ms. Nelson. If you don't mind visiting with Floyd. Council, now that we've kind of gotten to a pause with, I haven't counted, maybe somebody else has counted, I think this is a great crowd, and I know many of you in your hearts are for our community, and you have expertise either in your, whether you're Kimber and you work for the school district or you're JT and you're a builder, we have some unique expertise in the room. And so I just want to say thank you for the time that you took to come and be a part of this conversation. But I'm wondering if there are other questions that you guys have on your minds that you want to ask all these experts while they're here. And you may not. We're going to have plenty of time to have, this is a start of a conversation. So,
Mayor, I just wanted to ask Mr. Tran, who spoke earlier, where his property is located. I don't know if he's still here or not.
I see him.
He's right there.
Okay. 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 Okay, so it's in the downtown area? Okay. Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. 16th and Jackson. Okay,
Oh,
thank you.
16th and Jackson. Okay, I totally misunderstood that.
Thank you, Mr. Tran.
Mayor.
Yes, Cole.
So can I get are there funds that are available in the HUD program? And if so, can we get how much that is and the allotted amount of time that we have to spend that, if it's just been sitting there for a while, or if we're constantly doling it out, where it goes next? Second question, do we have an advocate or an advocacy program for people that get hung up in the paperwork on HUD? Just because it is a pretty cumbersome process. Is there something like that that would help maybe get some of these people pushed along through the program if the money's sitting there but it just hasn't been spent because of paperwork?
For all programs that run through the city, we do have individuals that are tasked with each individual person that comes through the program. So they do have, I don't know if we call them caseworkers, I believe we do, but we have people that are assigned to assist each person that goes through the program. Kevin Starbuck, Deputy City Manager, CDBG is one of his areas, so he can speak to all those questions. Kevin?
Yeah, so the city receives, currently this year we have $18 million in HUD dollars. It is up about $4.5 million this year, primarily with COVID funds, coronavirus relief funds that have been expanded into that program. The vast majority of that, 10 million plus a year, is associated with the Housing Choice Voucher program. So those are, Ms. Myers came up and spoke about that. That's where she is getting her assistance, and we help roughly 1,500 families every year through the Housing Choice Voucher program with housing. In addition, we have Emergency Solutions Grant, Community Development Block Grants, other grants that help us to prevent homelessness, address homelessness. We move money through that department very quickly. So we're not sitting on money. Right now we actually have a stockpile of money, but that's because the federal government keeps giving us money through the coronavirus relief funds. We just got another allocation 2 weeks ago of $2.5 million. So we're constantly doing that. We've got caseworkers that will help individuals navigate that program, work with them. It is a cumbersome program, but by the same token, we do have staff that are there to help individuals work with them. The key is that we have to follow those requirements. So when somebody has to bring in proof of income or proof of bills and things along those lines to determine qualifications within the program, we have to follow those rules. So that's where we work with the individuals and the like, but it can be stressful. I'm not saying that we can't look at an advocate or something along those lines, but we work with a lot of different program providers and the like to try to do those things, and there are a lot of different grant programs. So we do have a good staff over there that will work with individuals, try to address their needs, try to address their concerns. But it is navigating a federal grant program.
Mm-hmm. That's fantastic. Thank you for that. You know, I came to a meeting here not too long ago, and you have to be careful when you come to these meetings because you can get put to work and you can end up learning a whole lot and doing more than you expected. So for all of you that came, thank you, and I'm just going to warn you, thank you for coming. I hope you come back, but let's go to work. So the Builders Association, if there is some of this money here, perhaps we could discuss being able to partner with the Builders Association dollar for dollar. And then if we have somebody like Mr. Whitehurst out there that would be willing to find a property, you know, present it and say, hey, let's just do one. Is there anything that the city would get hung up in the way that this process would work? Because I can think of nothing better for me on a crash course with you of learning how my city is best able to help its citizens than for me to get involved and just go do one. Because I know that I can do the tour and I know that I can ask the right questions and read a bunch of booklets, but I would love an opportunity to actually impact something and maybe put some of us to work. And so I think we've got a good, strong base here.
Cole, I'm wondering, if that's something you're interested in, we'll have jobs on the city council, and I'm thinking this might be a good first job for you. Are you willing to
I told
go?
you I'll be careful.
I know. Are you willing to go to work on like a task force with regard to vacant property and condemnation? And then what that would look like is you and Jared and I and whoever Jared thinks needs to be initial conversations. We start that with the process of meeting, and then we decide whether we're going to pull citizens in, like I don't want to make committees just to make committees.
Right.
What I want is to get the work done. But what I need is someone on the council that will drive that issue and help us move it along. Are you willing to do that?
I am, and so for you guys that don't know, I'm brand new. So I got sworn in earlier today. So forgive me that I don't fully understand how the processes work, but I don't want to overstep and say I could do something that I couldn't. But I think I understand what you're saying in the form of a task force. And then if we could partner with some of our builders or citizens, then I think that would be great. And so I would be willing to head that up. I'm going to learn a whole lot with you, be able to see how the process works firsthand and work around some of the navigation. And so that would be exactly the action item that I would hope would come out of this. And then a follow-up where we don't all just have a couple meetings and then walk away and nothing changes.
Yeah, I see a real opportunity for working on this condemnation vacant lot, lots to be developed already inside versus annexing. That's a whole separate issue, and we're definitely going to work with the Builders Association about that. But I think there's potential here for the focus that's been tonight has been more things that are already here, a diamond in the rough, as Mr. Whitehurst said, that we aren't taking advantage of inside the city.
So let's do this if we could. Ginger and I will have a discussion about a task force and pull that together and see what that looks like for what's best for our council. Am I saying that the right way?
Yeah, we're going to have, I think let's commit first to having a meeting with Jared.
I like it.
And seeing what staff role is, and then out of that meeting, we'll know whether the best next step is a task force or, we may have the programming already in place to start doing that. So let's do that meeting and then go from there.
So we could have our meeting and go that direction on our side. If you showed up tonight and you're willing to do something, you're willing to be utilized that way, if you would leave your name and number with Stephanie right over here or a contact and email, I'll take that list back, and then after we decide what this looks like, then I would be able to contact some of you guys and not lose contact with you in what this may look like going forward.
Thank you, Kevin. Yes, ma'am. Stephanie?
Yes, come on up. If you'll share your name one more time with us.
I'm Kimber Thompson. And I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, and that is not my goal here, but I'm one of those people that believes if we're not fully transparent, we're not going to accomplish anything, right? And so you asked about case managers and things like that with community development, and I know they have case managers, and by no means do I fully understand how insanely busy those people are and how insanely busy Jason is and Amy and all of those people. But one of the things I hear constantly from my clients is that it's very hard to get a response when they need help. And it's very hard to get a response when they have a question and something's going wrong. I will tell you, applying for an ESG grants or any type of HUD voucher, an ESG coupon, or any of those things that we help our clients with, I don't even understand it. I'm constantly on the horn with Amy or Celine or Jason or somebody to say, wait, what about this or what about this or what do I put here? And so I know that people that don't have someone helping them are finding that process extremely difficult to navigate. And I know there have been some changes made and new people have come in and that kind of thing. I would just encourage the council, you, Mayor Nelson, and Kevin to just really make sure that those people in that department have enough time to respond to all of those needs, and that there really is someone who's spending time helping them with the initial application process. Because I hear a lot, I don't know what I'm doing and I can't get anybody to help me with this first step. So I think that that's something that maybe needs a little more attention, is just getting help with that first step and help with when there's a problem, who exactly do I contact? Because the CBDG grant's different and the ESG is different and the contact person for the, different coming home is different. And I think sometimes that gets very confusing for our clients.
Yeah.
So
Okay, Kimber, thank you very much for that feedback. And I mean, it's a federal, we're administering federal dollars, and so those are all federal forms that the city doesn't generate those, and they have to be filled out the way the federal government wants them in order to process those. So, but that is very good feedback on just hearing from a customer service perspective that there's room for us to improve. Stephanie, I see 2 hands.
I see a few hands. So let's start with the gentleman right here in the navy vest, and we will get to everyone. Sir, if you'll share your name with the council, and then we'd love to hear your comments.
My name's Shelby Massey. I'm a commercial realtor in Amarillo and deal with a lot of investors. And I think on this HUD thing, in educating investors and having some way to educate the investors, because I think there's a lot of investors that would invest into the north side, the east side, as our company does, but maybe we don't know how to do it best. And I think it would be, something, I don't know what the answer is, but I think it's definitely helping educate the people who need it, but also helping educate the investors so that they can educate the people and help with the process.
Okay. Thank you, Shelby.
Thank you.
Okay, this ma'am right here in the green shirt, if you'd like to speak. I believe it was Theresa Kennedy.
Oh. I agree with what Kimber Thompson said about the fact that there's a lot of paperwork, and just trying to understand that is difficult. Imagine if you had to do that in another language. Lots of other languages. Just in our city alone, there's over 35 languages. And so when you think about, here's the paperwork and it's only in English, or maybe it's just in English and Spanish, to look beyond that. Who's the interpreter available? Who's the social worker talking to the family? And you know how we did the clinics and now they went from the Civic Center to outreach? We're going to communities like Alamo and so on, Alamo Center. What if we took this process and took it to outreach, took it to the Alamo Center, took it to the Wesley Center, took it to Charles Warford, and actually helped people in those settings, in a comfortable setting, in a safe setting, fill out the paperwork so that it is explained to them step by step how we do this. I get that there's a lot of confidential information. I realize that. But it also could be, we're in this room and we could be spread out at different tables here at just Grand Plaza and say, you know what, you're going to work with this family and you're going to work with this family, and really be able to explain that process. And then this is when your deadline is, and these are the paperwork pieces that you're going to have to provide, because I'm explaining it to you. And so if I had to immediately go into Spanish, how many of you would understand that? So if we're asking people who speak different languages to understand this process, I believe this is one way we can make this easier. Bring it to our community. I'm from the Barrio neighborhood. Let's bring it here. Let's host it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kennedy. And ma'am in the maroon shirt, if you'd like to speak. If you'll share your name with council and then your comments.
My name is Pam Palmer. I work for Panhandle Community Services. We also have the HUD vouchers. We work with community development also. So that might be something to consider. We have a weatherization program where maybe the Builders Association can help us with that. We have trouble getting contractors to work with us. It's low income federal dollar. So it's a lot of red tape, complicated. So, and I will leave my card with her up there for more information.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else that had a hand raised that would like to provide comments? Mayor, I would turn it back over to you again.
Okay, final comments from the council. No? Any questions or reports that we need from the city manager as a result of something you've heard tonight? I think we're clear. Cole, we'll get on Jared's calendar, you and I, to talk about next steps there.
Okay.
Howard?
Is the information that people fill out to speak, does it have contact information on there?
It does. It has name, address, phone number, email, and then they wrote their topic.
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay, well then I'm going to call this meeting adjourned and thank every single one of you for helping us be more aware of your concerns about housing in our community. Thank you all.